Hello and welcome to Center Stage, your show where we bring issues pertinent to the community. I'm your host Neha Mahajan, and today you're watching us live on TV Asia as well as Facebook. America is facing an immigration issue. Is it facing an immigration issue? Priding itself as a land of immigrants, the USA today is unfortunately divided. We're joined by an esteemed panel of guests in our studios today. On my left, we have Ludka Zimovcak. She is the managing attorney of Nachman, Fulvani, and Zimovcak Law Group. We're also joined by Paul Danilchuk, President, NJ Conservative GOP. And we're also joined by Sunil. Sunil is a H-1B holder, came here to the US as a student in 2004, and is currently stuck in a green card backlog since 2011. This is not Sunil's real name. We are protecting his identity. Also later in the show, we'll be joined by CEO of Protect US Workers, attorney Sarah Blackwell, and Andrew Murardi, who is the Deputy Director Policy of Forward.us. We will also be taking phone calls, and those of you who are watching us on Facebook, please comment, send us your questions. We will be including all of those in our show today. Paul, my first question to you is, has America lost its historical value of welcoming immigrants?
No, not at all. In fact, the United States of America is the most welcoming for immigration. We bring in the most immigrants out of all the nations combined. So what the president is trying to do is work it out where there's a little more control and a little more a positive way of doing the legal immigration, stopping the abuse, the fraud that goes on. And his main goal is twofold: security, for once, vetting those who are coming here. Second is buy American, work American.
That's right, the buy American, hire American. But under the garb of buy American, hire American, the highly skilled immigrants who are here in the US are facing a lot of issues. Ludka, do you want to add to it?
Yes, unfortunately, yes. There has been USCIS, which is the Immigration Service, have been issuing a lot of policy memorandums, and it's all stemming from the Buy American, Hire American, and it just made the whole immigration system more difficult. So it's tighter for H-1B holders on all the front, whether it's immigration courts, L1, family immigration. So for the past 2 years, we have seen a lot of slight changes.
Right. So, Paul, do you see a disconnect? I mean, we see President Trump tweeting, and even in the State of the Union address, he spoke highly about high-skilled immigrants, and that's how he wants people to come to the United States of America. But there seems to be a disconnect to what, Ludka just mentioned, that on one side, the president is saying that we want high-skilled immigration, but on the other side, he's tightening it up. The agencies are tightening it up to such an extent that people have no choice but to leave and go. What do you have to say there?
No, well, basically, again, it comes back to the buy American, hire American. There's American workers who can fill these jobs. They come first, America first. And after there's a shortage, then it goes to the H-1 visas. Now, these kids have spent anywhere, and their parents, anywhere from $40,000 to $75,000 per year on education.
Right.
And a lot of them are getting undercut because they're hiring people with H-1Bs for lesser amounts.
Right. Sunil, do you agree? You came here as a student. How much money did you put into your studies, and you're now an H-1B worker who's stuck in a green card backlog?
Well, I didn't. I didn't pay for any of my college. I came on a research grant here, and I worked on a research grant for some of the top companies, and my university has some partnership, and that's how I was selected by the university.
Right.
But again, a lot of people I know, my wife, she paid, although we paid taxes in New Jersey, my wife ended up paying $60,000 for her master's here from Rutgers.
Right, but when you were hired, did the company ensure What is the process like? Do you think you are
for
taking
example,
away an American's job? Just coming back to Paul's point here.
So for example, again, it's a very case to case, and that's the point I think I want to bring here. Like, for example, in my case, my company was looking for 14 months, this particular position, and this position was open, and I was moved from across the country to the greater Philadelphia area just because, they couldn't find anybody. So, and that's why, and I was the first hire of my department in H-1B visa.
Right.
I just want to mention that the USICS has found an abuse they call benching, where they're bringing people with H-1B visas,
Right.
and they don't have the job ready for them.
Right.
So what the administration, the Trump administration, is trying to their goal is to do is to find out specifically who these people are, what their job is, are they ready to go, for how long, for where.
Right, but people like Sunil, who are here in the US and contributing to the effect that Sunil just mentioned, do you think they should be penalized for all of this too? For something that the other folks are doing, should people such as Sunil be penalized?
No, if he's following the rules and regulations of the H-1B visa, fine. But a big problem with the H-1B visas, overstaying. Those who ran those planes and jets into the Twin Towers overstayed their visas.
They were on a student visa.
They overstayed. Now, if the president's reforms were in effect, there'd be a lot of people alive today. So it's also security, and it's also, again, to make sure the American students, the American workers, have that first shot. We have some pretty smart people in this country.
That's right, and there's absolutely no denying it. Also, do you think H-1B is a cheap labor, as they are sometimes accused?
That happens. They're hired for a specific amount, and then when they get here, it's a lower amount. It's not fair to them either. That's not right.
So the point here is that if I was going on a highway and I know that there are no cops there, I will go at probably 100 miles an hour. And that's the job of, isn't that the job of USCIS? Shouldn't the USCIS had been looking into this thing from the get-go, that we shouldn't be getting frivolous cases? Isn't the USCIS who gives these visas? So they should have been doing a proper vetting job from the get-go itself.
You're
rather than blaming the people who are coming from a
Right.
different country and saying that, well, you are taking the American jobs.
All right, time right now is, we'll come back to your comment here. Time right now is for a short break, and after the break, we'll be joined by, over a phone line, we'll be joined by Sarah Blackwell, who's the CEO of Protect US Workers, and she's also a famous attorney. Stay with us, keep sending us your questions over Facebook, keep calling us. Our phone line is 732-650-1100, right on the other side of the break. Welcome back. You're watching us live on TV Asia, also on Facebook. We're discussing America's immigration problem today, and also around the highly skilled immigration. Paul, before we went on the break, you mentioned in the segment that immigrants, the legal immigrants, America is the highest, is the country that takes in highest number of legal immigrants. We have a question here from Facebook. One of our viewers, Abhi, has put it out for you. He asks, 0 immigrants can apply to immigrate on skill, even H-1B visa sponsored by US employer. So when you say America has highest legal immigration is misleading, mostly family based. And I think what the point he's trying to make is that of the 1 million green cards that are provided, that are given out by USCIS, 860,000 are given out to people irrespective of their basis, irrespective of their skill set, and only 140,000 are given on the basis of skills. What do you have to say?
Correct. That's what the president is trying to correct and rectify. It's a lottery system. We really don't know. It's by chance that you get here. He wants the best and brightest from other nations to come here, augment our country, make our country better. And this is one of the things he's trying to rectify. And like Sunil said before, they've been very lax.
Right.
He's trying to correct these things so people like Sunil do not have this problem, who are following the rules. And he should be supported on this,
Right.
not harangued about it.
Absolutely, but sadly the reality is far from it. Right now we have Sarah Blackwell, attorney and CEO of Protect US Workers. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Hello?
Hi Sarah, welcome to the show.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you can. You're live on air.
Okay, perfect.
All right, welcome Sarah.
Hi, how are you? I'm so grateful to be on. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. So, Sarah, we were just discussing, if you were watching us, about the whole legal immigration issue here in the U.S. And do you agree that most people, mainstream Americans, kind of confuse legal immigration as such? You know, they confuse documented or the legal immigrants with undocumented. There's no way for them to know, or for the lack of knowledge. What do you have to say about it?
For who doesn't have to, who can't tell the difference between legal and illegal?
The mainstream
immigration?
Americans.
Like
Mainstream
American
Americans.
people?
Mainstream Americans, yeah.
I don't know.
Yes, I mean, it's two totally different issues. It's two totally different problems with different solutions. And I mean, I think that you cannot mix the two at all. I think they're two completely different issues.
But then, do you think that the negative rhetoric aimed at undocumented immigrants is unfairly also targeted at the law-abiding non-immigrant workers here?
Well, I think that, is it unfair that, well, it's unfair to the ones who are here legally, who did the right paperwork, who did everything they're supposed to do, who didn't overstay, to be lumped into a category with people who overstayed when they weren't supposed to overstay, or who came in without doing the proper paperwork, because to come in sometimes is hard, and USCIS, especially nowadays, is doing a lot more sending, requests for information and things like that. So the people who go through and jump through the hoops and pay for all of the cost to come to America the right way,
Right.
They deserve to be treated in the way that people like that should be treated.
Right, but
Can I
again,
mention something?
yes, absolutely,
in
Paul.
regards to that, if you see presidents speak, even at his rallies with 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 in the audience, he says, we want legally, he would say, legally. People come
Right,
legally.
right.
And I think it's more of a media thing, meshing the two, than the average American. Hey, if it wasn't for legal immigration, I wouldn't be here today.
Right. Sunil,
So
do you
that's not
agree
the
to what
problem.
Sarah here is saying, and then also Paul?
But part of the process is that, well, I completely, I do agree that, that the legal immigration should be favored. But the problem is that the system is broken. The current immigration policy is broken, and the Congress has not been able to pass anything for last 20 years or so. So yes, people like me who came 2004, 2005, was one of the top students of his class, are waiting in a green card backlog, which is probably going to go for like 150 years. And personally myself, I'm like in a 35-year backlog. So
Right.
how is the system fair to me?
And also, are you ever, is there any resentment around you being a temporary work visa? Because I think what I understand is when someone is stuck in a green card backlog, they are indefinitely on an H-1B visa until they
Exactly. You basically, it's a simple labor economics, that you have created an unfair market, where somebody doesn't have the same rights
Right.
as a U.S. worker.
Right.
So not that I'm saying all the employers, but yes, you have subjected that person
Right.
to be taken advantage of.
And it's very difficult.
There definitely
Or
anybody who needs a sponsor to be in the U.S. is at risk of being exploited by the American corporate owners and
Right.
managers. And when that foreigner is exploited, then it also hurts the American workers, because if a foreigner is required to work 90 hours a week, and if you don't like it, you're fired, and then there's no sponsor, and they have no legal right to be in the U.S., well, now all of the Americans working around them, can't leave after 60 hours or 70 hours. So it hurts everybody to be in that position of being able to be exploited and not being able to.
Sarah, do you believe that H-1B visa holders are cheap labor? Because that's the language that we hear so much around these temporary workers.
Well, I think that to call someone, cheap labor and say that H-1B is cheap labor is just, it's not fair to the people. But I will say that the business owners, the corporate business owners, are very smart, and they learned how to use those type of non-immigrant work visas like H-1B to bring in cheap labor, to contract with other companies, take Americans, fire them by the thousands, and force them to train foreigners on these non-immigrant work visas for a lot cheaper and save a lot. And then when they get their big $5 million bonus at the end of the year, it's because they saved money on labor cost. So,
Sunil, do you want to jump in and say what you want to say?
By American corporations to bring in cheap labor, yes.
Right, Sarah, Sunil wanted to say.
So the fact is that, we have heard some of these infamous stories, which is mostly, I would say, in the field of IT. But what about the people who are, for example, I work in the mechanical engineering sector. I work for a packaging company and been in this country for almost 14, 15 years. I know people who are semiconductor chip designer. I know people who are, neuroscientists. I know people who are, food scientists. I know people who are, what about those? Don't those guys have any rights?
You guys are the ones that suffer because of the way that the system is being mistreated. If let's say your company wanted you to work for them, right, and you deserve it, you are high skilled, you have everything required to have this work visa, and they're applying for one, and Cognizant, Emphasis, Tata, IBM, Verizon, they're applying for thousands. Statistically, because it's a lottery, statistically, your company's not going to get to bring you in.
Right,
so
Sarah, if I may just cut you here.
Suffering.
Sarah, if I may just cut you here in the middle, we're a little short on time here. Just wanted to ask you fairly quickly, but when you read online and when you talk to people who are just so not aware about this whole H-1B program, they are labeled as job stealers, and the people on H-1B are targeted. Why aren't the corporations held accountable? Why aren't organizations such as yours going after USCIS or the corporations to kind of better this entire, bring a reform around so that it's better for the H-1B community, also for American citizens?
I'll tell you, very, very simple answer. The corporate owners, the billionaires own, the 1%ers are the ones that benefit from it. They own the media. They pay for all of the campaigning of the congressional people. They buy off Congress. I mean, they fight for the storyline. They make the storyline because they own the media. And, American workers who are forced to train, like 1,000 American workers who are forced to train 1,000 or more foreigners from one country who come in and then they leave, their experience hurts them. And so they have this hatred for the people around them. But, in reality, those people are also victims because now they come to this country being put in a situation where everyone around them hates them, So it is definitely the corporate owners and the people, and the government workers that they have bought off, and the media that they own are very much responsible.
Sunil, do you want to just say something
here?
Yeah,
so basically the point I'm I'm not getting any younger every day. So, and again, I'm stuck in this country. I'm in this country for 15 years now, and being on a temporary visa, it does hurt. It does hurt you every day on things you do, basic things like getting driver license. I know family members who are living in two different cities or two different states, because the wife and the husband can't get the same the job in the same city because sponsorship is difficult. So what about the green card reform bills which are pending in the Congress? Why can't we get that fixed, or at least get the backlog off? And then I'm all for fixing the H-1B visa and the whole process. Let's clean up the whole process.
Right.
I think Ms. Blackwell was on to something there when she mentioned, when Sunil mentioned some of the legislation. There are those in Congress, and Ms. Blackwell mentioned it, who are paid off by the lobbyists to stop this legislation from becoming law. You have the president, who's the spokesman for these reforms, and he gets demagogued by the media, the press, and the Democrat Party. So he's the man leading the way. He needs the help, the support. And
but it's just more difficult for people like Sunil. So for example, if Sunil gets an offer of employment from a different employer right now, you would have really hard time to change the job with the no premium processing.
Yes, exactly.
You would, in case there is H-1B filed by the new employer, he's risking, if he starts
Are there higher rates of denials in an
much
H-1B?
higher. That's what I was going to say. The denial rate is much higher.
So is the government, instead of on the way to reform, is actually shooing all this talent away? Is that what's happening?
It is possible, because in case Sunil gets a new offer, he ports to a new company, H-1B gets denied, he's done. He needs to leave the U.S. So he just mentioned that he's been living here for 15 years, has a family, he has his friends, community, ties, and now he'll have to leave because, for example, there is no premium processing.
I think there's a complete agreement, but there's an agreement, and again, Congress doesn't need to solve all the problems at the same time, but this is a very easy problem to be fixed.
A low-hanging fruit.
It's a low-hanging fruit.
It is a low-hanging fruit.
That
we'll
fix
get back
the
to
H-1B
it,
visa.
Sunil. We're running into another short break. Time right now is for another short break. We wanted to thank Sarah Blackwell, CEO. She's an attorney and CEO of Protect U.S. Workers. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us. Viewers who are watching us live on Facebook, our phone lines are open. You could call us at 732-650-1100. We are taking your questions on Facebook. Comment there. We'll see you on the other side of the break. Welcome back. You're watching us live on TV Asia and also on Facebook. We're discussing America's immigration problem. In the earlier segment, we had Sarah Blackwell, CEO of Protect U.S. Workers and also an attorney. Before we went on the break, Sunil, you were mentioning how Congress knows about the issue, but is anything happening? It's such a low-hanging fruit, and you kept mentioning that the president intends to do something about it. But what's happening really is like people like Sunil who are on the receiving end of it. So how do they deal with it now?
Well, the president's there for 2 years. This problem's been going on for decades. It's going to take time and cooperation to fix it. It's a problem. He can't even get funding for the border, which is a mess. So how's he going to get the wheels turning on the low-hanging fruit?
You're speaking like a true politician here.
No.
But
I'm
what
talking
I'm
about
trying to say is, like,
I'm talking
these
about
people,
factual.
their
what's
lives
going
are
on.
getting affected, Paul. Their lives are getting affected. Their kids can't go to school. They can't go to college here because
Really?
they will. Yeah, because if they are born in India. Like Sunil is from India. If they're born in India and they're on H-4 visa, you've heard about DACA, but you wouldn't have heard about H-4 Dreamers, where the kids age out and they're no longer on status, and they'll have to self-deport themselves. Their spouses, the H-4 EAD, the work authorization that the spouses of H-1B workers who are authorized to green card, that is under threat right now. The president is taking that away. So what relief should these people, be looking for?
I don't believe he's taking it away. He's trying to reform it so we get away from these lotteries where we get the best that are coming here. The
Paul,
country should expect that. If you're going to come in,
for that. For
Right.
brightest, there is actually O1 visa for extraordinary workers. So that's a separate category. H-1B is for professionals in specialty occupation. And the lottery...
We have a caller here from Atlanta. Hi, you're live on air. Please state your name. Hello, you're live on air.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Please introduce yourself. What's your name?
My name is Sam, and I'm calling from Atlanta.
Hi, Sam. What's your question and for whom?
My question is for Mr. Paul.
Go ahead.
My question is, why can't they can bring up the 2013 bill, which is the S744, which got passed in Senate, but it was never came for voting in the House. If they pass the immigration bill, which is for 2013, I think a lot of problems, including undocumented and H-1B, the family sponsors, everything is going to get resolved. Plus, at the same time, Donald Trump can get money through the fees and also build the wall that he wants $8.6 billion to construct the wall. And that can solve a lot of problems for everybody.
okay, I think you hit the nail on the head without really realizing. You said it passed the Senate. Who controls the Senate? The Republican Party. You said it stalled in the Congress. Who controls the Congress? Those who are beating up the president on every little thing he's trying to do. So there was a big mistake this past November when they flipped it and had the majority of the Democrats run into Congress. So the Republican Senate passed it, and this is where it gets gummed up and people like Sunil have to suffer. These people are playing games with people's lives. So I can't answer for the Democrat can control the Congress.
But there hasn't been any immigration reform, and correct me if I'm wrong,
Well, the
in the
gentleman
past
just
2
said
decades.
it passed the Senate.
Past 2 decades. There have been ample chances for the... Exactly.
USCIS policies that slowly change the system, H-1B system, L-1 system, slowly. But these are just USCIS policy memorandums that made a big difference. For example, starting immigration proceedings. So once the application is denied, the immigration can start removal proceedings.
Right. We have another caller on air right now. Hello. Hi. Introduce yourself. You're live on air. Hello. Please introduce yourself. You're live on air. Looks like that call.
Yes, I am.
Hi. Hi. Please introduce yourself. You're live on air.
For the delay. My name is Rubal. I'm calling from Boston, and my question is, well, actually, before I go to my question, I would actually like to put out there on the record that the Labor Department approves all the petitions and the salaries of the foreign workers before they even come to the U.S. So if there is a question of bringing in cheap labor, the burden of proof lies on the Labor Department to make sure that the people who are coming in are paid right. I was also kind of set back when the H-1B visa workers were compared to those who did the attack on the Twin Towers. By the way, there were a lot of Indian workers on visas who actually lost their lives there. Moving forward, I've been hearing this. My question to the panel and Sarah, I've heard the background, all what U.S. tech workers have been saying out loud in the media and on Facebook is about bringing in cheap labor. Why don't Sarah and Paul and the administration work with the people like Sunil and myself to fix the systems? I've been in the country for 15 years. My daughter is 5 years old. I teach STEM education from kindergarten to MIT, and I mean it. Why don't the people here in the panel work with us to solve the problem rather than labeling us as the cheap workers and making our lives worse?
Right. Paul, do you want to take that up?
Yeah, I believe the administration is trying to right some of the wrongs, but when he can only propose, and somebody mentioned there are only proposals, but it has to go through the Senate and the Congress, and that's a problem. People like, I don't like the term myself, cheap labor. Their lobbyists like the cheap labor. So it's going to continue until it's brought up on shows like this. We concentrate on a lot on illegal. I'm glad to be here on legal immigration because there's some problems within the system that have been going on for decades, and this young man has to suffer for it. But give the president his due. He's trying to straighten this out, and on every speech, every rally, he says, we want legal immigration here. We want them here. And the crowd yells and cheers.
Yet the rhetoric that's getting created is absolutely the exact opposite.
I'll give you an instance, guys, and that's why I'm saying that I'm not getting younger any day. There are 600 odd workers who were on H-1B visas, and I don't know if they had filed for the green card or not. 600 odd workers died in this country while on H-1B visa, and some of them also were waiting for their green cards. So what do you have to say about that?
Did you hear about the case Srinivas Kuchibotla, who was murdered as hate crime because it was in Kansas a couple years ago? And the reason why, because an American worker thought that he's taken away the job, but that's not the reality. So these workers have no protection. You keep saying that Congress needs to come together to bring some reform, but clearly that's not happening. So what is the way out?
The way out, I'm sorry to sound like a broken record. The president as the cheerleader for this topic. Awareness is curative. He's making the people aware of what's going on with the H-1B visas. And that's the first step. It's decades long, a problem. It's going to take some time to fix it. Give the man a chance. He wants those here.
Okay.
And it's a shame that it's...
But he's making it more difficult, though. There are processing delays, major delays.
Give the man a chance is what Paul has the message for President Trump. Time right now is for another short break. Keep calling us. Our number is 732-650-1100, and we're waiting for you for your comments on our Facebook. We'll see you on the other side of this break. Welcome back. You're watching Center Stage, and you're watching us live on TV Asia and also on Facebook. We're taking questions from our callers and also on Facebook, and we are discussing America's immigration problem, especially pertaining to the highly skilled immigrants. We have a caller right now from Indiana. Hi, you're live on air. Hi, you're live on air.
Hi, this is Pranita from Indiana.
Hi, Pranita. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks, Neha. This is a great show, and everyone on the panel are doing really great. So I have a few questions. I disagree to some points there, and I do feel that there is some misunderstanding definitely in between categories of legal immigration itself. So I do understand there are legal immigrants who come on family-based diversity visas, something like us, which we are on H-1Bs and H-4s. Like my husband is here for 15 and a half years now.
Right.
And I joined him 10 years ago.
What's your question?
So the family-based immigration people, they are able to go and join jobs like in Walmart and are next to a U.S. citizen right away, and no one complains that they are taking away their jobs. But we are skilled. Like my husband's specialization is in the orthopedic industry. He has patents on implants. The implants are saving a lot of people in this country. He works with like high surgeons in this country.
Pranita, come to your question, please.
He designs them, manufactures them. He works even on weekends to go and experiment them on cadavers.
Right.
That's how he started off his life, and now he's managing huge teams in a big orthopedic company.
All right.
So
what's your question?
Why are we held hostage? And right now, I compromised my H-1B and stayed home for some time doing some voluntary jobs because we have a kid, and I couldn't find a job on a H-1B in the same location, and I changed to H-4 EAD.
Right.
And we don't have any idea on when the green card will come. So why should a H-4 EAD be been such a threat from the past 2 years.
Right.
So H-4 EADs are not even 100,000 of them.
Right.
And there are 7 million jobs out there today, as per the Department of Labor report. And why do everyone think that these 100,000 jobs, 100,000 employment authorizations are a threat to the 7 million jobs
Right.
out
Pranita,
there
thank you
today,
for asking that
as of
question. Thank you for asking that question. Paul, do you want to take that?
Well, I want to go back to the other statement that
Right.
the president's making it worse. No, he's trying to make it fairer for the American citizens. A lot of people in Washington, especially in the Congress, put non-citizens and American citizens on the same plan. American citizens come first, so they should have the first crack at these jobs.
But these people were invited on the basis of their skills. If you want to put American citizens first,
which
then
they haven't been.
But
This is
these
being
people are not
corrected.
getting their due. They were invited to come and work here. Their families are struggling right now, which I don't think anybody is seeing. Ludka, do you want to add to that point?
I want to just say that H-4 is definitely on the way to be taken away, and as Pranita mentioned, it's going to affect about 90,000 people, and these are mostly spouses of H-1B visa holders
Who are already in line for green
they
card.
are here. The whole H-4 EAD or employment authorization was created because of these backlogs, because somebody like Sunil has to wait for 15 years.
Right.
So this was just an opportunity for the wife to be able to work.
I'll give you. I'll just quickly add. I had a friend, who applied with me on H-1B visa in 2007, and one friend from Turkey. They are citizens. They voted in the last election, and here I'm waiting. And my spouse, has to move to different cities and different towns to find a job because I'm temporary and I cannot support her, so that she has to support herself.
Are you saying that people who are on H-1B coming from other nations apart from India get their green cards much faster? Is that what you're trying to say?
Less than a year.
And how much does it take for Indians?
Today, I think by any accounts, if you see that, it's like 150 years
Oh my
or
God.
something
So
like that.
Do you think there's a need for these rules to change, Paul?
And that's what's trying to have happen through this
Right.
administration. You mentioned some of the people, they're here with visas, can't get jobs. You know how many college graduates
Right.
are still living at home in their basements because they can't do something with their degree?
Ludka, do you want to add to that
But
point?
if there is a company and they wish to hire somebody from China or from India because that's an expert in the field and they've been looking for that person for 1 year, they have very difficult time to bring
Right.
them here because of the lottery. If you
Absolutely.
think about it, there are only 65,000 H-1Bs.
Right, Ludka,
Last year
sorry,
there were
we'll
about
have to go into another
200.
call. Andrew Morarty, who is the Deputy Director of Policy at Forward.us, is joining us on phone call right now. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, hi, Andrew. So, Andrew, have you been following this conversation that we are having today?
I have.
What do you have to say to some of the comments that are being made around laws and the change of laws? The panel doesn't seem to be coming on a middle ground here.
Sure. Well, I want to say one thing to the big picture and something that I think Paul has brought up a couple of times. Nia, just as you point out, I think there's actually a lot of agreement that we as a country could probably do a better job of recruiting and retaining really highly skilled people from other countries,
Right.
And that there's a lot of the ins and outs of this process that need to be reformed. But on the big picture question of how that moves forward on Congress, I just want to say that when it comes to the president's immigration priorities, I hear at all the same rallies and all the same speeches that same express support for legal immigration, but it has to play out in the policy. And the reality is that the one sort of employment-based immigration bill that the president has endorsed or spoken to was the RAISE Act, which would have cut legal immigration by almost half and didn't add a single employment-based number. There was not a single additional person who would have been able to come in on the basis of skills under that bill. And further, it would have actually moved us further away from skills-based because the point system it proposed rewarded wealth and English-speaking ability more than hard skills. And so not wanting to get into the ins and outs of that bill, I just want to say that looking at matching action and to words, I really want to see the president and his administration live up to this support for legal immigration and to
Paul,
endorse some of
do
the
you want to
really
answer to what
practical
Andrew's
solutions that
mentioning
we've heard
here?
about today, like
Right.
removing those green card per country caps
Right.
and protecting the ability of H-4 workers or H-4 spouses to continue working.
Right. Andrew, stay on the line. Paul would answer
Yeah,
this
the
question for
president's
you.
goal is to go away from the lottery to a merit-based. Now, a merit-based, they're checked out more thoroughly, then they get on a fast track to get here. The lottery.
Just for the H-1B. That's not for the green card, though.
I think the lottery. I think you guys are. I think one thing which
Confusing the
I just want to set the straight term for lotteries. There are two type of lotteries which happen. One in the green card. There are about 50,000 green cards which is based on diversity visa. That's called diversity green cards. So every year, USCIS picks out 50,000 people from different parts of the world and then gives out a green.
And that's to remove the lottery.
And
But
that's
we are
that.
talking about H-1B lottery. These are
and-
non-immigrants.
And that's a H-1B is a
Correct.
non-immigrant visa, and every year it's called cap subject H-1B, and that's called 65,000. There
Right.
are about
Yeah.
200,000 people
Right.
subscribe
Sunil-
for 100,000. I know one of my friend. He's a PhD in chemical engineering. For 4 years, that guy has been trying. He's been working for my company. He can't get into
Right, and
you
that
know,
sadly is
H-1B,
the state
and
of a lot
finally
of people here.
he applies for an O1 visa.
Caller,
Sorry, go ahead.
Sunil, I'm sorry to cut you right here. We have another caller calling in. Hi, you're live on air. What's your question? Hi, you're live on air. Please introduce yourself. Hi, you're live on air. Please introduce yourself.
Why am I
Looks like we have lost connection there. One question that I wanted to ask Andrew, and I think he's off the phone line right now, is that research has proven that blocking immigration from certain countries could also mean an underlying racist agenda. Do you think that's something that is happening here? Because I think the target really is, and Ludka, correct me if I'm wrong, that mostly folks from highly populous countries are the ones finding it hard to be here, and the agencies are actually forcing them to become undocumented by their policies.
So there's a huge backlog on India, China, Philippines, and Mexico. So just to give you example, family-based category, brother and sister of a U.S. citizen, they're waiting for Philippines about 20 years.
Right, but
come
H-1B, we're
here.
talking specifically
For
about the
H-1B, it's a little bit different because as we talked about, lottery. So there is lottery. But somebody from India who is born in India would be subject to the visa bulletin, which means currently they're processing cases from 2009. So you mentioned 150 years, but it is about 10 years of wait time.
Yeah.
But I think
yeah,
we've
but the
been
maths
seeing
doesn't work that
It's
way.
longer,
The
yes.
maths doesn't work that way, and again, some of our super geniuses have figured out that there's about 150,000. 150 years,
Bottom
because
line,
considering
very long time. Very
bottom
long
line is
time.
very long
Not
time.
in their
The amount of
lifetime.
pending cases in front of USCIS, and that's the problem. USCIS doesn't come and publish those numbers in front of people so that people can make a choice. When I came for my master's, I had an admit at the same very prestigious university in United Kingdom. I could have gone for a research grant there also. But had I known about this backlog, I would have preferred UK.
And unfortunately, Sunil, what's going on, I actually get a lot of calls that people are trying to move to Canada. So we are losing the talent and people
So Paul, do you
to
think
Canada.
with all this agenda, which is with the right intention that the president is trying to do, is actually pushing all these skilled immigrants away?
No, in fact, I was waiting. I thought I could get on a show
Sure.
without hearing the R word, racist. If there's anything racist, it's 1962 with Senator Ted Kennedy's immigration reform bill. If there's any racism, it's to Eastern and Western Europe, because the quotas for them to come over is so low. And so to interject racism into that, I think if there's any bit of racism, it's against the European nations.
Ludka, do you have to say? What do you have to say? You deal with a lot of clients from India and China. What do you have to say?
I just say that it's very difficult to bring them here. It takes for them really long time to get the green
Do
card.
you think the policies are getting
And-
targeted to just these two countries?
I don't want to say it's targeted, but it's definitely more difficult. Just if you think about the consulate, to go for someone as a Sunil to process the H-1B visa at the consulate is very risky because they may be stuck in administrative processing where it takes months, sometimes years.
Right. So what happens to those families when one part of the family is living here
separated
in the US and the other? So we talk about family separation, which is such a big issue that we've been hearing about, but we're not hearing about these cases. Do you think some way the agencies are misinformed about this whole situation?
Well, I don't know. Bureaucracies usually get bollocksed up and forward movements very slow as a snail's pace. Maybe so. But like I say, the problems are aware of this administration. Finally, an administration that's aware of these problems and is trying to get something done about it. And I praise the administration for trying to do that. And in cases like Sunil, hopefully there is some resolution to that, because it's not right. Those who are overstaying their visas and abusing the H-1B visas, that's not going to be tolerated anymore. It's not going to be tolerated.
We all agree on that. I think all of us agree.
Like, you know, I think the whole community or people who are on the backlog, they completely agree that yes.
Well, you should tell Washington that.
You know,
the president needs some help on that.
No, but the problem is that, you know, again, goes back to the low-hanging fruit. You know, you have a 7% country quota, you know, for the whole 1 million green cards. Now that 7% country quota is arbitrary. This was put in 1961. And since then, it hasn't been changed. So, for example, I'm just trying.
Whereas the global economics have changed completely.
Completely, you know, the internet was not there, you know, at that time, and so you are trying to say is that most of the, like, I was visiting Washington D.C. and, you know, I go to this museum and I find that most of those rockets were done by or developed or designed by the German engineers. So let me ask this question: at that in 1961, if we would have put a 7% country quota, let me ask, how many of those German engineers would have immigrated from Germany to here?
Right.
That's a hypothetical I don't have an answer for. But I'm telling you, in many other countries, if you still don't have your green card or your visa's up, you're gone.
But you also get your green cards in 6 months flat or even less. And the spouses get work authorization right on arrival in Canada and Australia. So
the United States is the only country which gives green cards based on country of origin.
Well, maybe
and
that should
too
change.
on the basis
like
of
I
skills.
say, it's going to be done on skills and merit finally. Finally, thank heavens, skills and merit. A meritorious situation.
Right.
Organize
Let me ask you this question, Paul. Does the rush of qualified immigrants coming from a certain country, especially India, concern you?
People coming from Russia does concern me.
India.
I'm sorry?
Coming from India, from other parts. The question was, does the rush of immigrants...
Oh, I thought you said Russian.
No, the rush of qualified immigrants coming from India concern you?
Qualified, and they're there doing the right steps, been vetted, and there's a need for them. The Americans cannot fill those positions. Yes, yes, I'm going to echo what the president says. We want you here, please, but it has to be done legally, as he would say, legally.
I don't think there's any H-1B holder here.
Everyone is here legally.
It's just that the system right now is that even for those that have held H-1Bs for a long time, like Sunil, next H-1B extension could be denied because, for example, there is a new definition of specialty occupation. So they're just changing the policies to make it much stricter to even get the H-1B.
Let me say this, you know, even if you're not denied, you like think about it, I probably have to wait another 35 years. You know, my company can go into a bad situation. No fault to me. My company can go into a bad situation, lay everybody off. I literally have 60 days to find another job or leave this country after staying, let's say, hypothetically after 20 years. So how fair is that to somebody like me?
Well, they have rules and regulations, and all I can say, and until they're fixed, that's what's going to happen. If your visa's up, your green card's not renewed, there might be consequences. That's just the laws of the land. So unless they are changed too, I think this country is very, very good to the people that come here, that immigrate here legally, and they've been too good to those who come here illegally. So things have to be done. And again, the administration is trying to face these things.
We'll talk about it. Time right now is for another short break. Right now, We will come back to you. Keep calling us. Our studio phone line is 732-650-1100 right after this short break. Welcome back. You're joining us today live on TV Asia's Center Stage, which is also on Facebook Live today. We had a very interesting conversation about the highly skilled immigration. We were joined by attorney Sarah Blackwell, who's also the CEO of Protect US Workers. We were joined by Andrew Murarati, who's the Deputy Director of Policy for Forward.us. We also had a lot of callers call in today, and we heard a lot of opinions, right? Immigration, I believe, is such a topic that it's very hard to come to a middle ground. And maybe that is why Congress is also finding it hard to come to a middle ground, and there hasn't been a single reform in the last 2 decades. Thank you so much for watching us today and being part of this journey. We hope we have been able to start a dialogue. Until next time, this is your host, Neha Mahajan, signing off.